Banji Eva Corja, Foilsharov Galerquick, our Fireside Chat. Eimear Burke here. Welcome to this Fireside Chat, and this is Fireside Chat 187, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And as is customary, I begin with a prayer for peace. Gamara Shiakon na Fud na Crinja, Gamara Shiakon in our Jaili agus in our Jirha. Ganairi Lin Lenarquid Garmaka, Gamwich Wikas Jeev, Je Chivtaka, is Spirit Quivtaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities. For peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb. That our swords be beaten into ploughshares and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So you're all very, very welcome, and let's see where you are from. Hi, Liz from Wyoming, Gisborne, Australia. Hi, Lloyd. Forfar in Scotland. Hi, Judith. Sean from Canada. Stephen from County Louth. Welcome all. Lovely to see you all. It is bucketing rain here, and I hope you can't hear the sound of the rain on the skylight. And Dublin, Ohio, very nice. High River in Canada, Atlanta, Georgia, Istanbul, lovely. Northern Germany near the Danish border, lovely. Anyway, you're all very, very welcome. Dallas, Anoka, Minnesota, great. So this time we are going to Wales, and let me introduce my guest this evening, and it's Chris Cooper Hayes. Chris, you're so welcome to this Fireside Chat.
Oh, good evening, Eimear. How are you?
Good. Now, I know you've just arrived in Wales. What was it, yesterday? So where in Wales are you?
So I'm between Aberdyfi and Tywyn, which is along the coast of Cardigan Bay. And I'm relocating from the Midlands, from Leicestershire. So whilst this is a very familiar area to me, to actually be living here is quite a new thing to be adapting to.
So what prompted the move?
Well, we've been coming here virtually every year as a family, and Deb's my wife. Her family have sort of had settlements here and lived in the area, so it's been a place that's meant a lot to us for years and years. And so the landscape here is very familiar. We've got the Dovey Estuary, which is absolutely beautiful, and the mountains at the back here, right up outside my front window. So it's a very familiar area, but actually becoming a incumbent here and living here culturally and settling is going to be a whole new adventure for us.
I'm interested, what are the mountains that are behind you?
So we are right at the very southern tip of Snowdonia, so Eryri, and we have the foothills here building up towards the big guns. We have Cadair Idris, which is about 25 minutes down the road, and we're quite away from the main mountains of Snowdonia. But we have what is called Happy Valley, is just beyond our garden, which is a lovely mountain pass which snakes its way from Tywyn through to Machynlleth, which is at the head of the Dovey Estuary. So I'm looking out over some big hills. They're really lovely.
So I'm now you have me curious, because it was a Happy Valley in Kenya and a Happy Valley set. I won't talk about those, but why? They were English colonialists having great fun and shenanigans in Happy Valley in Kenya. So why is it called Happy Valley?
Haven't got a clue. I really don't know. I suppose it just, as you drive through it, probably brings a smile to people's faces because it's got some really lovely twists and turns, and it's quite spectacular views along the way. It hasn't always been a happy valley by all accounts. way back in the time of King Arthur and the Knights of Camelot, the land fell into, well, it became quite an unhappy place. There were reports of sheep and livestock going missing on the mountains, and travellers who would be walking from Towyn to Machynlleth would not make to their destination. And there was a lot of sort of curiosity about what exactly was going on. And soon the people in the area began to fall ill, and the water was quite toxic and pestilent. And they had suspicions about what was going on. And so a group of the villagers got together and started walking right up to the top of the pass where there is a lake. And in that lake, an avanc had taken up residence. And if you don't know what an avanc is, it is quite a hideous creature, reptilian of body, amphibious, but with a huge mane of what you would think is hair. It is actually writhing pondweed, and it will tangle and ensnare its victim. So this beast had taken up residence in the lake and was having its merry way with the sheep and the pigs and travelers and children and polluting the water. So the villagers tried to negotiate with the beast, but it was a stubborn sort. It wasn't having any of it. Why would it give up this beautiful lake it had all to itself? It wanted ownership of the lake. It wanted to gorge itself on the bounty of the mountains. Now, it'd be easy to draw comparisons to our water companies, wouldn't it, I suppose, at the moment. But yeah, the avanc wasn't going to go anywhere. So they actually, sort of in desperation, sent off to the court of King Arthur, and the big man himself actually came riding to the aid of the locals. And on his way, he stopped at Machynlleth, and he asked for the biggest horse that they had. And he carried on his merry way to Aberdyfi, and there asked the fishermen for the thickest rope they could spare. And then he asked some of the locals of Towyn if they could supply him with a whole host of pig's bladders. Armed with all of this, Arthur rode into the mountains, and he came upon the lake, and it was all still and quiet, and there was no sign of the beast anywhere. But he knew what he was up against, and he went and stared deep into the water, and there, below the surface of this pestilent water, he saw these two glowing yellow eyes staring back up at him. And being a patient soul, Arthur just waited, and he waited until the eyes quietly shut. And then he created a noose, and to that noose he tied the inflated pig's bladders and silently set the noose drifting across the lake. Now in time, the avanc awoke, feeling hungry, and rose from the water. And at that point, Arthur, upon this mighty horse, yanked upon the noose and snared it around the neck. And so began an epic tug of war between Arthur and the beast. And none would give ground. The avanc anchored its claws deep into the bed of the lake and gripped the rocks at the side, whilst Arthur stood upon this mighty steed, and it would not yield. And the two were pulling and pulling and pulling, so much so that the hooves of the horse actually dug into the rock, into the slate beneath its feet. And so they were in deadlock, and Arthur seized his opportunity, leapt from his horse, and as the avanc reared back with one final pull, he hewed the head off the avanc, and this disgusting head fell into the lake, writhing with reeds, and so the beast was defeated. However, the actual problem, the pestilence, hadn't gone. So Arthur called upon the spirits of the lake and said, I apologize. I'm so sorry for what we've done to this lake. Is there anything you can do? And the spirit of the lake said, fear not. And it turned the reeds into water lilies. And so it is that every year upon this lake, the water lilies emerge. And it is actually called Llynbarfog, which means the bearded lake. And if you go up there now, you can still find the hoofs of Arthur's horse upon the rocks and see the water lilies every year coming into bloom. And it is a lovely, beautiful lake in the mountains. And that is just up the pass from me here.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. My goodness. Brilliant. Liz Hills, Wyoming, she says, before you started the story, she says, all this sounds like the area where some of the darkest rising books are set. She says the grey king and the silver on the tree. Would that be true, or would that be accurate?
I couldn't answer that. I've not read them, so I don't know. Quite possibly. So the Dovey Estuary, if we were to maybe look at the Cerridwen and Taliesin story, if we were to think of where Taliesin was cast out to sea, there is a good likelihood it could have been the Dovey Estuary, because on the other side of it, between Aberdyfi and Aberystwyth, there is actually a village called Taliesin. So it's, there's a lot that would suggest that that he floated out to sea here, and that the salmon weir was on the other side of the estuary, but what we'd now call Inishlas Nature Reserve, around there. So, but no, I've not read them, so I couldn't honestly tell you.
Wow. So Nimi wants to know, can you still see the hoof marks? Have you seen them?
I've been hunting. They're up there. But yeah, so I've only, yeah, it's quite a wild area. And so, yeah, I'm hunting, but they are up there somewhere, apparently. And on the bed of slate.
Having heard that story, made me want to go and just explore that place and see that lake.
Please do. Yeah,
see
come
the
across.
lilies.
It's a short swim for you, Eimear. You can
Absolutely
hop in a dinghy. You'll be across in no time.
Of course. That's a brilliant story.
Bag, yeah. I've adapted it from the actual legend a little bit there. I've created some creative license gone into that, but that is fundamental. Yeah, something, the variation on the theme of that story. Yeah.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. They're meant to be embedded.
No.
It's all about that is brilliant. That is just brilliant. What a lovely start to our chat. So are you actually from Leicester?
Yes, I've lived all my 52 years in Leicestershire. So that is my familiar landscape. And it's been something I've been trying to adapt to, is leaving behind, I suppose, the hedgerows and slightly gentler fields and hills of South Leicestershire to take on the mighty beasts that we have here in Eryri.
I think Eryri is not for wimps. So what do you call a person from Leicestershire? What are you?
I don't know if we have that's actually a good question. I don't think there's any particular term. Okay. Most people just call each other me duck, but I don't think there's a particular term how you might have Mancunian or anything like that.
Yeah, Geordie or
enlightened.
Oh, brilliant.
But I'm having to live between two worlds. So yeah, I'm still backwards and forwards a lot whilst, because I've got a lot of work over there and business keeps me sort of in that direction. So it's a bit of a, kind of a trial period to see how it works out being in a little bit in two places at once. So my landscape is shifting.
I did that between Dublin and Kilkenny for 4 years. And after 4 years, I'd had enough of the double life. So I left Dublin, because Dublin was where I was living, and I had my home, and I moved to Kilkenny, and no regrets. So pleased I moved to where I am, even though it's not where I'm from, but it's where I belong. So tell me your background. I'm interested in your story as to how you found Druidry, or did Druidry find you? So a little bit of...
Yeah, there's a nice bit of both. So the short answer is, if you were to ask little boy Chris why he became a druid, it would be because one evening he saw a walking tree. And if you were to ask the grown-up Chris why he became a druid, it was because a mysterious voice from the south coast of England whispered in his ear one night. So they're the two short answers to it. And of course, there is a convoluted story in the middle of all that.
Well, give us the convoluted story. Yeah. So the walking tree, tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is, and these are things that sort of come back to you, don't they? And I'd forgotten about it for so long. But where I grew up in Evington, which is sort of a suburb area of a village on the outskirts of Leicester itself, I grew up it was a council estate, but it was very green. and the presence of oak trees was really huge, even as a boy. So as I looked out the windows of our house, there was this lovely big green verge, and on it were some whopping oak trees, real beauties. And so a lot of my childhood was spent around those trees. And I look back and think how, we were brutal, kids with trees that you can climb. There was nails going in and boards and trying to make platforms across the top of them. So the trees were always very prevalent in our play and adventure. But we also had a park around the corner where we'll go and kick the football around, go and tease the park keeper, cause mayhem in the rose garden and get chased and all the sorts of things that, kids want to do. But there was one evening, and it was just that lovely twilight sort of time where everything is settling into shadow. And I was on the park. You could play out late then, and as long as you're back by a certain time, you'd be okay. And I remember looking across the park in this twilight gloom and seeing a tree walking, which to this day I'll take it as I saw it. There would be an explanation. Of course there will. There'll be, is it a misremembered dream? Is it a hypnagogic state? What was going on? I really don't know. But I saw a walking tree and I remembered it. And it sort of sat with me for a long, long time. And of course, I was the sort of kid that was into Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy and all those sorts of things. And of course, I spent a lot of my youth messing around with that kind of that fantasy field. And in a way, then you become a grown-up and you go through working life, careers, family, marriage, children, everything else. And maybe some of that little bit of the magic and the fantasy drifts away and parks itself somewhere in the recesses of your mind. And it was about, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, maybe a bit less. And as part of my work, so I'm a garden designer, and my interest in plants began to sort of develop into maybe wanting to explore herbal medicine and plant medicine. And one day I was just on the internet looking at one of these sites that deliver online courses, and there was ones and so forth. But then at the bottom of the screen, it says you might also be interested in, and one of the courses was hedge witchery. And I kind of just stopped dead in my tracks and what the heck is that? And it was the start of a bit of a off down rabbit holes, really, because through all this time, I didn't realize that people were really doing this for real, as not some sort of, fantastical sort of make-believe thing, but actually living the life of a witch or a pagan. And so I began the exploration of that. I didn't even start looking down the herbal medicine route. I was lost. I was suddenly looking in different directions entirely. And so I began to listen to podcasts. And one night I woke up and I'd left my earphones in just with things playing on shuffle as they do. And I heard this, I'm going to say, don't you? So, welcome to Druidcast episode 1. And there was this voice in my ear. And I I remember coming away and it says, "I'm your host, Dave the Bard." And I just went, I snorted. I went, "Dave the Bard? Who the X this?" It was like quite funny. I thought, who's this geezer? So I carried on listening and found it interesting. Really, a great podcast, as you know.
Yeah.
But it just kept happening. I didn't necessarily subscribe to it. It was just, it kept coming on and just, it was like it would auto cue me another episode in. And before I knew it, I was just starting to back-to-back listen to them. So yeah, the reason I'm now here and part of OBOD and loving it so much is thanks to Dave the Bard and Druidcast, really. So yeah.
Brilliant. I think so many people have found Druidry through Druidcast. I thought you were going to say it was Philip's voice, that you'd heard a meditation or something. He has that wonderful voice. But so many people have found it who just come across it and then decide to join, and the rest is history. And it's interesting. I didn't start listening to Druidcast until 2020 when I got better broadband, because I could never get access
Okay.
to it. And when I first heard it, it's a podcast, I didn't even know what a podcast is. So what I started on was, I don't know, was it 190 something, and I went down to episode 95, went backwards, and then stopped at 95, went down to 1, and came up to 95. And right
Oh,
through
so
COVID, just because
yeah.
listening to all, other podcasts were driving me crazy, stressing me out. And I just listened to this. And what was fascinating, there were other pagan paths that I don't know anything about, and I'm not particularly interested in pursuing. And he had them on, and they were just so fascinating in terms of discovering musicians, storytellers, other pagans. And I just loved it, absolutely loved it. So I can see
Oh,
why
it
that would.
is. It really is, and you do have to take your hats off to Dave for producing so consistently, month after month, year after year, bringing out podcast after podcast. It's an incredible catalogue of work. It really is, and I did the same as you. I worked backwards until I got to the very first one. It was a lot of listening, over the years. Funnily enough, I actually sent him an email because I wanted to actually praise him and congratulate him on the production of the podcast. So what I did was I framed it in such a way, as I said, I've been listening to them backwards from finish to start. And I'd just like to say that they're much better now than they used to be, or something along those lines, which it all came out completely and utterly wrong, because it was essentially what he thought I was saying is they started off really well and ended up crap. But it wasn't. It's because, working backwards, but when he started out, it was new technology and trying out working with his voice and with the mixing and production and all of that. And gradually over the years, the productions got better and better and slicker and slicker. But it just sounded like what I basically said was, yeah, the old ones are really good, but the new ones are shit. And he sent me an email reply saying, I really do try my very best to keep the standards of Druidcast high, but obviously we can't always meet everyone's expectations. And I was like, oh no, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean that. You've got this completely wrong, Dave. So it's like, yeah, it was a really embarrassing start to ingratiating wise, but there we go. Yeah.
All is forgiven. Oh, that's
all is
good.
Forgiven now.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So how long have you been a Nobod?
It's about 4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic?
I treated myself to the Bardic grade for my 48th birthday. And in the end, it took me 2 years to work through it. And then I could see my 50th looming. So I set myself then the deadline of actually finishing on my 50th. And so I did. I submitted my Bardic, my Ovate application on my 50th.
Well done.
I've been stuck on that ever since.
Oh, take your time. It took me 6 to finish my Bardic one. So there's no rush.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
I just get my head down cracking on, but this, things get in the way, don't they? So.
Well, indeed. And you said you're a garden designer. Do you think, Druidry influenced how you design gardens now, or has anything changed when you think of how you approach gardens?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I did it because of nature. I mean, I've been a designer all my life. So my background was design, advertising, marketing, and very much more business to businessy sort of stuff. And I decided that I wanted to work with something that would change and evolve and be more three-dimensional and not just be quite so instant and disposable. So I went into it with the idea of wanting to design beautiful gardens, and the aesthetics were so important, Homes and Gardens magazines and Chelsea Flower Show and all that kind of stuff. But it was that there was something always saying to me, there's a better way, and that we can do this more kindly to the earth. And it was actually part of that exploration that set me off on that journey, even looking for the plant medicine side of things, because we're looking at natives and we're looking at just plants that are dismissed as weeds are going to actually have some sort of value in the garden. So in discovering Druidry, it aligned itself perfectly to the creative aspect, but also the nature aspect of what I was trying to do. And in a way, what I'd found that as we do love triads, don't we, as Druids, the design side of it is my bardic expression. So in creating a garden, that is my storytelling, and I'm weaving a creative narrative through the space. Whereas the plant knowledge can then be taken to be the ovate aspect. It's about that, the understanding of the plants and those interrelationships with the natural world around it. And then the druid part of it is then how it affects people. So one of the most satisfying aspects of my work is that I will often meet people who are really terrified of their gardens. They've become hostile to them. And it might be because of brambles and weeds and all these things that they think are obviously real nasties, but they just, they're disengaged. They don't know what to do. So I can apply the three aspects of it, the bardic, the ovate, and the druid aspects in helping, firstly, transform the space visually into something really beautiful, something healthy, where the soil is healed, where wildlife is coming in, where there's an abundance of color and beauty within that space, but also that people are healed and they will go out into their garden feeling just re-energized and having a relationship they didn't have before. And that could be really profound to see.
So, okay, so Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, or whatever, Mr. and Mr. So-and-so call you to transform their garden. So what kind of language do you use? I mean, you have your template, your bard, ovate, and druid template in your head. How do you convey that to, or do people know you're weird and then they say, he's the guy we want for our garden? Or are you a blank slate for people when they approach you to look at their garden?
It depends. So people will generally find me through Google and my website and look at the portfolio of work and think, well, we like what you do. So a lot of the time that is what I will encounter in that first phone call or inquiry, which is really nice because it means your work has stood out and resonated in some way. But yeah, the conversation, once I've gotten past the, oh, this is going to cost a lot of money conversation, we get on to sort of what they really want to do with the space. And it's listening is the first key part of it. Before I say anything else, the key part of the brief is to listen to what's not working for them. What do they want to see happen in this space, and why they've not got it now? And so begins that kind of fact-finding exercise, and then getting to spend some time in the garden with them, go around and spend a couple of hours just having a chat. And usually by the end of it, I understand them. They know whether they like and trust me, and hopefully most of the time they do. And off we go. Yeah, pen to paper and measuring up and surveying and all those sorts of things.
I'm really interested because, people talk about, I want a low maintenance garden. And, people who are frightened of their gardens with weeds and brambles and all those, what they see is gruesome things in the garden. How do you manage that, meeting that request?
So when people say to me, we would like a low maintenance garden, probably the first question I ask them is, do you want a lawn? And they will pretty much go, yes. And I'll go, we've got a high maintenance garden. So because you will probably spend more time mowing your lawn than any other task in the garden, which is okay. And I'm not anti-lawn at all. There is a lot of benefits, and it's like everything, you strike a balance. And good design is all about balance and harmony. So having the right balance of lawn in a space, some of it short grass, some of it long grass, that's all absolutely perfectly fine. But we just open up a conversation about how much they can do themselves, what their own limits are. So everyone can, I meet retirees who want to give themselves more time in the garden, in which case we can maybe go a bit more cottagey, throw a few more bobby dazzling plants in there that will need a little bit more fuss and attention. a lot of the time, the lower maintenance stuff is your shrubbery, and that plays a key role because it gets overlooked in sort of the pollinator garden argument. It's something that we're sold lovely packets of meadow seeds as a way of bringing in wildlife, and you'll get a lovely bee symbol on the box and all of that. Whereas the shrubs get overlooked for the value they bring in terms of habitat and nesting sites and food sources and pollen sources. There's so many amazing things, and you can still. The thing I try to achieve is that it doesn't have to look like a wild mess to still have those values. You can have love and attention, and you can tend a garden. You can even trim things and make nice shapes out of them because the habitat will still be there. The foliage can still have incredible value to bees and wasps or lacewings, whatever it might be, whether it's trimmed into a nice ball or a head shape or left to grow wild and doing its own thing. So I'm not precious with people. I'm not there to strong arm them into being eco. It just comes part and parcel of how I gently introduce them to the idea of thinking a bit differently about the garden space.
Wow. Sean has a question. What does he say? Is there an aspect to your druidry that changed the way you approach your vocation? I understand what that question is.
Well, I changed after. So I changed to garden design before I found druidry. So in a way, it was a kind of a retrofit process. Certainly, I say from that point of view of thinking planet first, thinking nature first, that became quite an all-consuming passion of mine. And I guess so in 2014, I did a show garden at BBC Gardeners World Live. And it was actually half the garden was wildflower meadow. And this comes back to that narrative that we spoke about before, telling stories through gardens. It was only a small show garden that I produced, but the story behind the garden was that a poet, a soldier, was on his way to the front lines of the battlefields. It's 2014, so it was the centenary of World War I. And this soldier was on his way to the front lines. And the garden, the show garden that I produced, half of it was woodland, and the other half was a wildflower meadow, a poppy meadow, as that was the hope. So within that setting, I put a tree stump, and there was a soldier's helmet and a little notebook with some of the poems that he was trying to write. And the story behind the garden was that this was the last opportunity the poet had to stop and write a poem to send back to his love back home. So that was his little tree stump, a moment of peace and quiet before he went marching off across the meadows. Sadly, whilst the poem made it home, the soldier didn't. So that was the story of the garden. And the back part of it was that woodland. So we'd got lots of foxgloves and sort of sisyrinchiums and ferns and old logs and leaves and a beautiful birch tree. And then to the front, there was just wildflowers, and we'd got oxeye daisies and everything else. And we got lots of poppies in there. And the idea being that this would be a field of poppies. And we came to the day of judging, and we'd had no poppies all the way through the build of the garden, right up until the last minute, not a one. And then we arrived on judging morning, and a single poppy had opened. And it couldn't have been more perfectly poignant at that moment. It was just that one soldier, that one poppy, that one lost soul. And so going back to the question about the druidic aspect of it, you can kind of see just that storytelling and how we're weaving the magic of the plants with the story of people, and really that's kind of how I think my druidry manifests itself in my work. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. I mean, people are saying, wow, highly evocative. That's so poignant. How beautiful. It is really, really moving and interesting.
I made the head. Sorry, I was going to say I managed to make the head judge cry with the
good.
story. So that's always a yes. I made someone cry. I love it when I make people cry. It just brings joy to my heart.
I mean, that's what a living garden is. I mean,
Yeah.
something about the First World War always brings me to tears. Just incredibly sad. And I mean, we don't celebrate Poppy Day here, but anytime I see a poppy, because I know poppies grow on undisturbed ground, you know, and when we've had disturbed land, it's great. Maybe 2 years in a row you get poppies, and then the land settles and they don't come back. Which I always go, oh, I better disturb it again. I don't, but you know, it's that that magic. What happens when land is disturbed, and how poppies they somehow it's about a sign of restoration or a sign of endurance or prevailing that we will come back. Don't you worry. It's just beautiful. Brent, I live in semi-arid California where lawns are a huge waste of valuable water. I'm planting native drought-resistant bushes like salvias that provide flowers for bees, hummingbirds and butterflies. Lovely.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, more of that, please.
Yes. And Jules says, how lovely. What a fabulous instance where the spirits of the land work with you. Gabrielle had a question earlier. I'm just seeing something about... I'm just trying to look for this one. Do you work more with the fairies now than in the past? Or do you work with I mean, elementals or nature spirits, however you call them?
Yeah, I think the spirits of the garden, I go into a space in my own garden, you know, I can be as free chatting away as possible. As I walk a fine line between how I am in a client's garden professionally, but by the same token, when I'm in there, I'm planting the plants myself. So I'm often then talking to the garden, and I will try whenever I possibly can to put at least one tree, no matter how small the garden is, that tree will be planted. And so there's always a blessing on that tree as it goes in, and there's a blessing on the soil and a blessing on the land as I work, even if I'm working it quietly to myself. I've yet to sort of turn up to a planting or finish off a garden in full druid robe and cloak and sort of go around with my spade. I mean, the day might come, who knows? But yeah.
Well, you want to keep your robe clean.
Yeah. Oh.
Wow. Yes. Sean has a comment. The scale and horror of war has now become a reality of the news. Well, indeed. But the First World War was seeing all of that as a collective horror of humanity for the first time. We forget the stark change. And yet, you know, was that the war to end all wars? Over 100 years ago, 121 years ago. And
it's a brave statement to make, wasn't it? It was a brave statement to make. Whether we'll see anything on the scale of it, we're in a position at the moment, I think, where there's so much horrific stuff happening, but it's all we hear about as well. And I think it's leaving us all on edge that we stop to see the progress that has also been made. So we've got to find a way of holding on to that memory of the war to end all wars. Where we could go back to is just unspeakable and unthinkable. And we've got some absolute lunatics, it feels like, out there capable of unleashing untold destruction upon the planet, worse than the world wars. The war to end all wars is going to have a great big red button and a crazy lunatic hitting it, and that's the war to end all wars, isn't it? So I'm hoping that in some ways we have seen that. It's just the pockets of stuff. Palestine, Gaza is on everyone's mind because it feels just such a tragic, wasteful, horrendous situation, and yet it's still not a war in the sense that we're all being roped in with just a load of bystanders negotiating and not really not fighting it in a conventional sense that we can see as clearly and transparently as thousands and thousands of people marching onto beaches or digging into trenches. That's pro whenever actually I'm back there.
And I mean, I'm I suppose I'm a conditional pacifist, but war is not my my default. But we're looking at Sudan, we're looking at Congo, Palestine, and we are all bystanders.
Yeah.
It's being done for us. It's being orchestrated elsewhere, not on our patch. And where people are protesting, the governments are not. So, you can't protest in Britain without getting into trouble. Irish people are protesting all the time. And our governments, okay, do some things, and then other times under the table they're not. So it's like people are out protesting, but the governments are not. And that's one of the frustrating things. And it's really, really sad. So, yeah.
It is. And I think we just don't know which way to turn, do we? We don't know what to trust anymore. Everyone feels very off balance with, certainly, I guess social media is a huge part to play in that. And the media in general leaves us all thinking the worst, feeling completely helpless in so many ways, infuriated in others. And we're just in this constant emotional tug of war. And the hope is, I think, that if we're so off balance, we're not equipped to perhaps deal with the real issues at hand, which are things like the scale of inequality in the world and these wars in far-flung places that are nothing to do with people. It's all to do with resources. And
right.
We turn a blind eye because we're just bombarded with too much too often.
And Sean is a great commentator on these chats. Be that single poppy in the garden you made, in stark contrast to the weather of suffering. And that's really interesting because I talk about Trebe Johnson from time to time, and she's written a book, Radical Joy for Hard Times, and talking about, injury that has been perpetrated on the land, and how often you say that beautiful place, that forest was beautiful. It's now been hacked to pieces and I can't look at it anymore. I can't go there anymore. So you abandon that place because it is no longer a place of beauty. And she asks us to go there and sit with the pain, sit in that place and find a little shoot that's popping up because they're there, like that single poppy. And that is important, not to abandon the earth because it no longer is beautiful. Absolutely. And it's those single poppies or those little daisies or little shoots that come up that want to persist. Those, a little olive
cracks sapling. In the concrete. Yeah.
That's right. The little olive saplings that will come up when their olive brothers and sisters have been destroyed through acts of vandalism, but to hope, that strand that we hold on to of hope and persistence and endurance and resilience.
Yeah.
So now it's really, so we're all talking about hope and life and living. I'm going on to my next topic.
Yes, absolutely. Bring on the death.
What happens when you die, Chris? And what are you up to? And what are you? So just introduce your Eterna website, your Terramation, and what you and Christopher Hughes are doing.
So Christopher and I are starting a company, or started it, which we hope will be the first company to bring human composting to the UK, where it's currently not legal to do this, and the Americans are doing it, and some European countries are doing it, and it's time we had it over here, really. So we're on a mission to make it happen, and so we've launched Eterna, which it's actually a really exciting day actually today, because we're launching our website. You can actually go and see it now. So it's live, eterna.life. We've done it. It's been months in the making.
Eterna?
Eterna.life. And that's Eterna with 2 R's. So ETERRNA. Yeah, we've got the earth in there, you see. So
Eterna.life.
Yeah, whack that into your browser and we should have a beautiful website pop up. But don't do it now, because obviously you're listening to this incredibly important conversation with incredibly thrilling and engaging people. Yeah.
Of course. Brilliant. Okay.
So yes, it's an exciting thing. Chris had produced that wonderful documentary series, and I'd been wanting to work with death for some time. It was I wasn't sure how and what I was going to do, but it was a few years ago. I was doing the Yorkshire Three Peaks with Debs and some friends, and we were up on the final mountain, and a man died in front of me, and we were literally on the top of this bleak, windswept mountain doing chest compressions and trying to bring him back, trying to keep him alive. We weren't sure he was actually dead. We were just working on him. We were swapping. We got his children were there, and there was this man just lying on the rocks. It was so hugely traumatic. It was just sort of the worst hour or so that you can possibly imagine. And I found myself in that space whilst I was fairly helpless with what I was doing to help the man on the ground. I was able to comfort and be there for his wife and his children, who were obviously seeing this man they loved, dying in front of them, essentially. And it set something off in me at that point. I came down off that mountain quite changed, and I didn't quite know how it was going to manifest itself in terms of what I wanted to do. And I chatted to Gabby for a while about doing celebrancy and going down that route. It still didn't kind of set the blue paper alight. And then I watched the documentary of Chris's, and as soon as it had finished, I got on the phone to him and said, "If you're doing anything to do with this, I want in. I want to do this." And he went, "Yeah, okay." And that was it. It was sort of, the idea was born. And in February, we're both traveling to Seattle, firstly to Terracon, which is the American Human Composting Conference, where Chris is going to be doing the hosting, the Master of Ceremonies on it. But then we're actually going to have a full week of work experience and be potentially the first British people to do it for real, actually learn how to terramate a human body and turn it into compost, which is going to be quite amazing, really. So, it's all happening.
Wow. And so where's this going to happen when you do get it legal here? There, where you are?
Well, I think we're going to try and make it happen in Wales first. It makes sense. We had a meeting a few weeks ago with the leader of Plaid Cymru, who is very much on board with trying to get this move through in the Senedd. The things might slow to a bit more of a crawl in terms of UK Parliament legislation, and that's the stage we're at the moment. There's definitely a call for it. People do want to see this happen at all levels, because we need an alternative solution to burial and cremation. And there is no framework for that to happen at the moment. So where we are at, there's a report that is being presented to Parliament in spring, which will hopefully establish that framework. And that will then hopefully set the wheels in motion for producing primary legislation and regulations that will enable the right paperwork to be in the right place to make terramation a legal thing to do. And what we're doing now is sort of laying the foundations for that happening, so that as soon as it's green lighted, we're up and running and able to offer this to people, because it really is I think it will appeal so much to the Druid community, the pagan community, anybody who's even remotely ecologically minded or wants to leave a greener legacy to the planet when they die. Cremation is hugely carbon intensive. And burial takes up a lot of space. So, this is a really much needed addition to death care in the UK. And fingers crossed, within I won't put any time limit on it, but we'll get this here. It's going to happen. It's just,
So how much land do you need to have a terramation center, or whatever you call it?
So in America, all terramation has to happen within an industrial setting. So it has to be on maybe an industrial park. So you'll have what would be a conventional factory. It all seems very stark and sterile, but actually when you go in, they're made into quite beautiful places. There are there are rooms where you can be with the vessels, where the bodies are kept. You can have ceremony in their ritual, and it's made to feel very welcoming. So it's not an outdoor thing. You're not putting people in the ground at all. It's very much a controlled environment, and the body is placed into a large vessel filled with straw, alfalfa, herbs. The family can come and put their own wildflowers and organic things in, and write messages and notes and place it in with their loved one, and help dress the body and lay them out before it's then filled up with more organic matter, and the vessel is sealed, and then the composting process begins. And it's surprisingly quick. You know, in 30 days you are compost. Then there is a sort of an intervention where bones have to be dealt with and ground up and reintroduced into the mixture, and then the whole thing you would remove things like implants and metal parts and that sort of thing, and then the body then rests and settles for another 30 days, and you're left with essentially beautiful, living, vibrant soil that you can put on the ground, put in the garden, and give to friends and family. That's one of the beauties of it. Yeah.
I just have a question. Some people, some places, burial sites, say woodland burial sites, prohibit, if you've had chemotherapy or if you've had some kind of, I suppose, nasty chemical medication, that they won't allow you be buried there, which I think is a bit harsh, mind you. So what kind of medication or treatment you've been on, how does that affect the composting process?
So anybody can be composted, providing they've not been embalmed. So that doesn't go with the process. And also, if there are a few very specific prion-related diseases or infections like Ebola, there's not a lot of reasons why you can't be composted. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is another one. If you were to have that, you couldn't be composted. So if you're not embalmed and you don't have a number of these prion-related diseases, then you can be composted.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very much, yeah.
Just Katrina, you've already said it, but you said what happens to the bones. So what you're saying, the first 30 days, that's what's left after the composting is the bones. Then you remove those, grind them, and then reintroduce them to the
which
compost.
Is what happens. Yeah, that's right. So it's powdered. You are essentially, you're adding a powder back in, and in the first 30 days, the temperature really rises rapidly within that box, which is when all that anaerobic activity takes place. The microbes start doing their thing, interacting between the organic matter that's placed in there. And it's at that point where the temperature starts to drop again that you can then go in and gently remove all the unwanted foreign articles and then reconstitute the bones back into the mixture.
I'm fascinated with this. How high does the temperature get inside the vessel during the composting phase?
That's a good question. I looked at this earlier, and you've caught me on the hop. I'm sure it's 150 degrees. Well, being sort of in big money. Yeah, it gets pretty warm. It's like it's essentially going back to the very traditional ancient process of composting, and that combination of carbon and nitrogen and microbes.
Is here.
Oh, here he comes. He's going to be the expert. Go on.
170 degrees. Is that old money or new money, Christopher? Is that that's centigrade, I take it? Wow. Anyway, brilliant. Now, there's somebody with a question here. He says, strange question, ? But how does one know one is really gone without the embalming process?
How does one know one's really gone?
As in dead, I assume, without the embalming process. I think I wouldn't want to rely on an embalming process to prove I was dead, actually.
No, if you've been done before you're dead, then No, I'm not. Yeah. No, I think we rely upon the death certificate is but we just know that someone can't have then, from the point of death, have gone off to be embalmed, which is usually a burial related process, preservation and all of that. So yeah, there will need to be the right conditions. Not everybody is going to obviously be suitable for this, but once a body is cleared for disposition, then providing those other factors aren't in play, then they can be delivered to a terramation facility.
I'm really excited. I'm hoping this takes off, because if it can happen in the UK, then you can come over here and spread the good news.
I think there's a lot of dialogue with Ireland as well. This is it's quite a movement, and we're getting certainly there are conversations being had, and I know Christopher's heard from people in Ireland who've expressed an interest in being involved with this, and I think it's only a matter of time, because I can't think of anything more beautiful, certainly from leaving that positive green gift to the earth when we're gone. This really ticks all the boxes. And we've even had conversations about there being a place where you could bring your compost and begin to create some sort of burial mound that is just an amalgamation of, thousands and thousands of dead pagans over the decades and centuries, and before you know it, you've got a new Silbury Hill. But something like that, with just huge place to come. Yeah, we could plant a grove of trees around it. Yeah, there's so many.
I mean, I find that intriguing. I mean, what a lovely idea, knowing this is that, the quintessential giving something back. When you think of so much of what we take from the earth, and to be able to say, okay, you can have me back, and this is not me at my worst, but perhaps me at my best. Actually, good nutritious bone meal and all the other beauties and delights to be had in compost. I think it's just a wonderful idea. I don't know if you were at the winter gathering when our theme was it 2 years ago, on animism.
Yes.
And we had Gordon McClellan and Graham Harvey and Lucy Jones. And I think it was Gordon talking about, we are all ensouled beings, and we consume ensouled beings to feed the ensouled beings that are consuming us from the inside. And this, that everything we eat is ensouled, be it plant or animal. And we are ensouled, and there are ensouled entities inside us eating us. And we eat ensouled beings to feed this ensouled being, but also to feed the ensouled, and ground ensouled. But that whole interconnected web, and then you die and you are composted. And
yes, you do. You bloom into a new stage of existence, don't you? It's incredible. Yeah.
And we think like the soul never dies, or the soul goes on, or our essence, or whatever we want to call it. But here's our bodies. Just that notion that our bodies have decayed, but not rotted into nothing, but actually are back in contributing to life again in a physical way. Well, we do it in an energetic way, but to actually do that in a physical way, I think is just there's immortality. And imagine being immortal on a Welsh or an Irish Silbury Hill. I just think that's wonderful.
It would be amazing, wouldn't it? If we had a whole network of them sort of across the nations, and we could have huge fires on the top and light them like giant beacons across the land.
I was just
it's just so honestly, it's the realm. I mean, death is the great adventure, isn't it? And we will carry on in our soul form. Our conscience will do whatever it's going to do, but imagining that our bodies are also being put to such fantastic use, and just seeing how small and minuscule a part of this whole picture we really are. I mean, our minds are infinite and vast, but our bodies are tiny components in the wheel of the earth, aren't they? So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I can't wait to see the next stages happen.
Yulala, I don't know if you're Yulala or Julala. Is there anything we can do to help in terms of you getting legal permission for this? Sign something. Or are you beyond the petition stage and it's the nuts and bolts
Well,
that are dealt with at the moment?
so the need to petition is probably not so great because there is definitely an appetite for this, and it's really just creating the demand and showing the government seeing that this is a very viable, accessible option to help combat greenhouse gases and meet their net zero targets and do all the things they need to do. So the evidence is there. It's a proven, tried and tested thing. So they're not having to use too much imagination, which is helpful for politicians. And then we can then go and actually sort of gather people around us. One of the things that we do have on the website, if you do go and visit it, is you can put your name in and subscribe to our newsletter. And that will, anyone who's on there will find out very quickly when there are developments and things are going to be changing, hopefully fairly rapidly. So if you do want to go onto the website and join the newsletter, we'll keep everybody posted as soon as we know more, and they can follow us on our terramation journey across to the States and back again and wherever it's going to lead us.
Wow. And just tell me, was that born in the US, or did they discover it from, borrow it from somewhere else?
I believe I think it's a US initiative. So yeah, Seattle was the birthplace of it, along with Nirvana. So yeah, it's
Nirvana.
Yeah, Seattle.
Nirvana.
Yeah, along with Nirvana, the band. Yeah, they were also born in Seattle. So, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, they were. Okay, sorry, because I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah. So no, they created the idea of it. So, I mean, obviously, it's been around in a natural form for a lot longer than that. It's what happens to us if you just leave us out in the corner of the garden for long enough. It's going to happen all on its own, isn't it? But the actual concept of creating a kind of a clean and workable, sustainable process is all from the US. And that's the beauty. Brilliant. It's carbon neutral, no chemicals, nothing nasty.
That's just wow. Liz, who's in Wyoming, she says, I just checked. There are apparently quite a few places in nearby Colorado now, so it seems to be spreading pretty fast. That's great to hear, Liz.
15 states, I believe, at the moment and counting. So it's definitely getting wider adoption. And I think Wales is very progressive in its thinking. And I don't think the rest of the country will be too far behind. So
brilliant. I just think this is really exciting. So let's keep going. So you've launched your website tonight, is it?
Yeah, this is literally for the people watching. This is hot off the press. This is you got it here first, people.
on the eve of tomorrow is the eve of Samhain, but so Halloween starts tomorrow, but it's called Ihahauna because it starts tomorrow night, and that's the night before Samhain. Yeah. So and Paul has just subscribed to the newsletter. So
thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh,
yes, we were aiming for. It was very deliberate intention to make it a Samhain launch. And it's just the way all the pieces fell into place for today. We just get it out there, start spreading the word now, and so on the Day of the Dead, Eterna is born and brought to life.
Brent says, I think the whole Earth catalogue first publicised it 50 years ago, and I don't know whether that was just an idea 50 years ago, thinking we could do this, and maybe it's been 50 years in the making. Nimi says gardeners will love this as well as pagans. I just think the whole idea is just beautiful. So hopeful. Yeah. I mean, I have that image, of the dead person lying in this vessel, with the alfalfa and all the other stuff, and then people putting in the relatives, their flowers and all of that stuff. Just adding to that process, I think is, that in Ireland we do death very well because we see the bodies of our loved ones, we wake them, etc. So we're very close to it, and I did a funeral for a friend of mine on Tuesday, but the family had put things into the coffin to send her on her way, and around her, laid out, and how lovely that was. And for people, and there are many cultures, modern cultures, who don't see their dead loved ones. It's very removed and quite sanitized. And I just think the idea of being around the vessel, coffin, whatever you want to call it, around that and seeing the loved one, and then adding, we're actually helping to send our loved one on their way so that they can come back to us. It's mind blowing.
It is. That in itself is beautiful. But the other thing that terramation has over cremation is that it's a slower process. So for people that are still trying to come to terms with that loss, the opportunity exists with terramation to come back to the facility and sit there and just go and be alongside that person you've lost. Even though they're going through this transformation inside the box, you can still be there and deal with things in your own time, rather than, there is a sort of a conveyor belt process to cremation where you turn up, you've got a 45-minute slot at the crematorium, you're wheeled in, everyone says a few things, you put on a thing, shove through a curtain, and that's it. It's really rapid, and it can be stressful. So our hope is to lift the veil a little bit on that process as well, and make it transparent, make it open, make it welcoming and loving and nurturing, so that people have got a safer and more holistic place to grieve, however it works, whatever it looks like, or wherever the facility is. They're the things that are yet to be revealed. But that's what we want from Eterna, is that people feel held for longer in that grieving process.
Absolutely. Gabriella says it'll also be a psychological social experiment to see how people react to this, and if it influences how folks process death. I think it's a beautiful opportunity for that, Gabriella.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, it's going to be magical.
Well, Chris, it's been such a joy talking to you, and we've come to the end of our time. And at this sound time, I wish you. So, I haven't asked this question in a long time. What's your favorite festival on the Wheel of the Year?
Oh, well, no, it's going to make me sound like I'm really cliche by saying it is this one, because it was. I used to, going back to that child in me that we spoke of earlier, is that I would be getting excited about, as it was Halloween, so early, and be more excited about it than Christmas as a kid. And I still got excited about that too. So it's always just held a really special place in my heart, just because how my energy's built throughout the summer. And I was also, it seems really daft being a garden designer, but I had chronic hay fever. So I'd go through the spring and summer months really struggling with pollen. And so I'd get to autumn and it would just be this huge, and the land around you changes and everything settles, and it would become, an easier time for me as well. But I love it. I do love it.
Have you grown out of your pollen sensitivity?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, basically cured myself through getting out there and doing it and being a gardener. So it was most of right into my 20s, I was just terrible until I got my first garden in my first house. And then my love of gardening sort of developed from there, and just spent so much more time in and around the plants that now I barely notice. Occasionally, if it's particularly strong, I'll be a bit sniffly, but otherwise, no, I'll just go out there and breathe away. Yeah,
absolutely.
But it means I have a better relationship with summer now. I mean, spring and summer I can look forward to in a way that I never could. So I've actually become more summery than I used to be. Not
Brilliant.
such a miserable winter grumpy git. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yulala says again, she may have missed this. And we didn't discuss it actually. Did you need special qualifications to set up, set up your Eterna or your terramation center? Because she says in France, this would be wonderful.
Yeah, I know France is a bit the same as us. They only have the option of cremation and burial as well. So not at the moment, but this is where we're at the regulatory stage. I don't think they're going to enforce licenses on this. There will be criteria to be met. And of course, you're going to want to be death care professionals in how you treat the body and the process and the family. So there's going to be a lot that will need to be addressed from a professional conduct and a sort of regulatory point of view. But no, not at the moment. But we aren't there yet. So we'll see what the government has to say. I'm fairly confident that providing you're going to meet a lot of the current requirements in how you handle things with dignity and safety and environmental requirements, then yeah, we'll be good to go. Especially as we're going to get training in Seattle. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I wish you all the best with that training. So listen, Chris, it's been an absolute joy talking to you, and I let you say goodnight to everybody, or good morning for depending on where people are.
Yeah, thank you everybody that's listened in. I've not been looking at comments or seen anything, so I don't know how many people have been out there, but it's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you, Eimear, and thank you all for tuning in. And I can't wait to see you in a few weeks' time. It's not far away now, the winter gathering, so I'm already very excited. I can't wait to get back down to Glastonbury and to see everybody and share the Druid love.
Absolutely. I'm going to send you to the green room and we can just look at some of the comments that you've missed afterwards. So I just say goodnight to everybody here. So thank you all again for coming. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And it's been a joy as well for me. And I wish you all, I'm just checking to see, am I going to be here next week? Yes, I am. So I'll see you again next week. But in the meantime, Banachtina Hauna Jiv, the blessings of sound to you, and Bialtana blessings to our brothers and sisters, our Druid brothers and sisters in the Southern Hemisphere. And may you all be blessed and enjoy the rest of your evening, the rest of your day, or if you're watching a recording of this. So until we meet again, Slán go fóill.